That's Nick.
And that's Joseph. And today we're here to talk about the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare, the 15th film directed by Guy Ritchie, which is being released courtesy of Lionsgate on April 19th, 2024.
I know who Guy Ritchie is. What are some of your favorite Guy Ritchie films?
Well, we reviewed his last couple, well, two of his last few. We didn't do Operation Ruse de Guerre, but Guy Ritchie's The Covenant and Wrath of Man, which I believe we were both fans of. I'm probably the biggest fan of his early couple of titles, Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, and Snatch. And he's also done a lot of very glossy, kind of middle-of-the-road Hollywood films, like in the Aladdin remake, the Sherlock Holmes films, Man from U.N.C.L.E., etc.
What is this movie about? The British military recruits a small group of highly skilled soldiers to strike against German forces behind enemy lines during World War II. What is your pull quote?
Ritchie goes for glossy in this highly modified, super stylized World War II treatment, well-paced and hyper-violent enough to lull us into forgetting its underlying horrors.
Mine. The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare is a slick and sexy Nazi massacre fantasy that may be a little too cute for its own good.
Yeah, I really get the sense that Ritchie is trying to marry old Hollywood glamour, because there's direct references to Casablanca, which I was reminded of several times throughout this, with kind of Tarantino-esque tactics with violent bloodbaths and some, tweaks and revisionism a la Inglourious Bastards.
Sure. The story is pretty straightforward and slick. So Winston Churchill, the Prime Minister of England,
played by Roy Kinnear, who's got some prosthetics on.
During World War II, there's some contention between he and Parliament because Parliament wants to approach Hitler in a more diplomatic way. But Winston Churchill is saying, I know this guy because I read his book. We need to take more drastic measures. So he has one of his brigadiers, played by Cary Elwes, to get in contact with Henry Cavill.
Gus March-Phillipps.
Who has a history with the British government because he's a bit of like a rebel. And they want Henry Cavill to lead a mission.
A secret mission.
A secret mission to basically slow down Hitler's operations in the Atlantic Ocean. So Henry Cavill says, yeah, I'll do it, but I need my crew, and I'll describe the crew. But he gets his crew together, and the mission is that they need to destroy a big carrier ship that holds equipment that would basically these U-boats are like submarines that Hitler's using to fight off enemies. And if they take the supplies from this ship, this will slow down the U-boats, which will give the British government time to kind of not let Hitler get too far ahead in his mission. So Henry Cavill and his team go, and they succeed. The only hiccup is that they were supposed to destroy the ship, but at the last minute they learned they can't do that, which we'll get into. So they end up stealing the ship and taking it to the British government. And as a result, that slows down Hitler enough, and then it's also saying that also is what allowed or prompted the U.S. government, FDR, to want to join forces with England. And then now this crew of ungentlemanly
warfarists,
warriors,
warmonger,
they are rewarded for their work. So we can start with the crew.
Well, we should start with, we're told in the very beginning that this film is based on true events from the declassified files of Winston Churchill, which were declassified in 2016, it says. But I also read this is based on a 2014 book. But my initial thought from that prompt was from the mixed up files of Mrs. Basil E. Frankweiler.
So Henry Cavill is Gus March-Phillipps, and he gets together this ragtag crew of people who, usually, because we just watched Ocean's 11, or I did for the first time, and every person had their skill.
Yeah.
But in this one, it's I really didn't get a sense of what any of these people are actually. They seem quite competent in everything.
Yeah, we get a background on each of them and why they dislike the Nazis so much. kind of thing, and their skills are a little less well defined, except for Henry Golding, who's really good with explosive devices.
But we have Alan Ritchson playing Anders Lassen, who is just this big beefy guy who's Swedish.
Sweet, yeah, he's playing Swedish.
Maybe gay.
Maybe gay.
I don't know. He acts gay. Then there's Alex Pettifer, Jeffrey Appleyard. He's kind of just brooding, very flat.
As he is wont to be. He's very much that... he feels like something that was just yanked out of a 1950s World War II movie, because he's very like, Cheerio, sticky wicket. And I really feel he has nothing to do, which is strange because he is before we meet him, he has been, he's being tortured by the Nazis. So Cavill and his crew have to make a pit stop to rescue him.
Yep. You already mentioned Henry Golding as Freddy Alvarez. He's like an explosives expert. Then we have Hero finds Tiffin as Henry Hayes. And he just seems to be like Henry Cavill's right-hand guy.
And I think most of his dialogue is like, I'll do whatever you tell me to do.
Basically. Then we have Babs. I don't want to mess up his last name. Olusanmokin.
That sounds good.
Who has like the best voice.
He's from Dune. He was in Dune Part 1.
He's playing a character named Heron, and he's paired with Eiza González, Marjorie Stewart. And they are sort of, while Henry Cavill and his team are sort of working like the ops and doing the, hard stuff. Well, not hard stuff, but the behind the scenes stuff. It's Marjorie and Heron who are working directly with one of the Nazi Heinrich Löhr, played by Till Schweiger. He's sort of in charge of whatever this Atlantic Ocean operations thing is.
Well, at this specific port.
At this specific port.
Fernando Po. Is that the name of it?
I believe so.
And that is where the ship with the supplies that are in question is currently docked.
But it's Heron and Marjorie who are basically working with Heinrich. They're basically trying to distract him so they can get an in on this island port so that they can then get their people over there to blow up, to take the ship and all the supplies. But just to get ahead of myself, we find out that they find out the ship is unsinkable. Because originally they were supposed to sink the ship, but then we hear like a side comment of Heinrich saying that he reinforced it. So now they have to have a new plan.
The ship's architect, who's Italian, which is notable in the details, I suppose. And also, not to mention, the ship is leaving 3 days earlier than expected.
So all of it is kind of expedited, but of course these guys miraculously execute this without a hitch, really. But the change in their plans is that because they can't sink the ship, they're going to steal it. And they blow up all the gas supplies for the island. And there are some other boats that are really fast that they end up destroying. It's the best word to describe this movie is slick. The dialogue, the action, the conflict. I mean, there's very little. There wasn't a single point where I thought, oh, this is not going to work out.
Well, even the hiccups of Cavill's crew having to get there and taking a shortcut, and then they have to evade both the German U-boats and the British because they're working undercover, and if they're caught, they will be taken to jail because technically they aren't sanctioned to be there because it's secret.
And they do it in a very slick way.
Yeah, they are confronted with by the Brits, and they are distracted because the Germans start bombing them.
Let me go through my notes. First off, this is a very attractive cast.
Yeah.
Which I find kind of distracting, especially because, anything based on a true story, at the end, they always want to show pictures of the people these characters are based on, and there is no resemblance at all of any of these people. So, it makes for a fun watch, I suppose, combined with the cinematography.
Yeah, I thought it looked great. Ed Wilds, who also shot Ritchie's The Covenant for him. I think that's great.
The movie's beautiful. The production design is really great. The score's
pretty good. That composer, Christopher Benstead, he's worked a couple times.
But the opening scene is we see that a German ship has intercepted Henry Cavill's ship. And they board, and it's Henry Cavill and Alan Ritchson. And they're trying to play it off like they're just these Swedish guys, like out fishing, and it would appear that they're trying to pretend to be like a gay couple. And so they're being silly and they laugh at this, Nazi commander, and he gets mad. And he's like, oh, okay, the last person who laughed at me, I gave them one of two options. I throw them off their boat and let them swim back to shore, or I'm going to set their boat on fire. So I'm going to set your boat on fire. So he starts dousing it with kerosene. They don't know that the other guys are in the boat. And of course, Henry Cavill and his crew get the upper hand and kill all those people on the boat. But we find out that there's a reason why they were so cavalier in killing all these people on this little boat, because there's a big German battleship in the distance. And we find out that while Henry Cavill and Alan Ritchson were distracting these people, Henry Golding scuba dove all the way a very long distance to this battleship and blew the entire thing up, which seemed kind of like, how in the world did he do that? But it was a very explosive start to the movie.
We're told he's good at swimming. They do try to underline that for us.
Okay. Eiza González.
We've seen her in many things. She's Rosamund Pike's girlfriend in I Care a Lot. There are a couple films I've seen her in where she's miscast, including Riz's Cutthroat City, where she's playing a detective that she seems too young to play. And she's beautiful, she's captivating, but I also think she is miscast here.
Well, I was kind of surprised when we find out that she's Jewish.
Half Jew. They make a point to say she's half Jewish on her mother's side, I believe.
But I think especially considering that the woman who she's based on, doesn't seem like her at all. But
right.
I think she seemed a little too continental, a little too exotic. She seems to know a lot about everything.
Well, and we're talking about Nazis who prize, Aryan qualities. She seems a little bit questionable in that regard as well.
When we first meet her, she's with Heron on a train and they're talking about food.
That's an annoying scene.
Well, I always find it annoying when people who look like they really don't like food or eat much of it have these really strong opinions about all kinds of food.
Well, I think it's annoying because they're holding their waiter captive while they have this
that was annoying too.
Frivolous conversation.
But it's a very slick scene where they have to steal some Nazi information by, getting a suitcase and then using radio SOS to transmit it to Carrie Elwes, all in secret. And then of course everything goes off without a hitch. So when we meet Heinrich, it's with Heron and Marjorie, and Marjorie's supposed to it just was so obvious that she's supposed to seduce him into trusting her, and she does very easily. But what I dislike the most about their interaction are these riddles that I don't know. I thought they were kind of corny.
They were, but she's supposed to be reading his behavior and kind of taps into the game playing that apparently these high-ranking Nazi officials all liked playing.
There's a character named KB, played by Danny Sapani, who I really liked. His name is Prince something, and he's supposed to be
Prince of Fernando Poe, they keep calling him.
So he's kind of like a pirate that sort of controls this region where the Nazis are, and he agrees to help Henry Cavill and his crew because he says that the Nazis are really annoying because they're affecting his operations. So he's very happy to help them. But when Heron and Marjorie first go to visit him, it's once again, Marjorie's gonna kind of seduce KB, and she kind of does. And he agrees, he even says oh, that's why you were here, to trick me, and you did. And then she's but she doesn't know how to, she's not a soldier. How is she gonna help us? And then we get a scene where she's demonstrating how she knows how to shoot guns. I thought that was corny.
She's the regular Mata Hari. Yeah, it's just again,
because we never see her in combat.
No.
So what was the point of that?
No, but she does seduce and distract him, kind of. But there's this awkward interaction where he asks what she thinks about Jews, and she's really saying how she really feels about the Nazis. Heinrich, yeah. But about Nazis in general and their treatment of the Jews, and she says she's a Jew, and then she starts laughing. He's like, "Oh, it's just a joke," and he kind of uncomfortably laughs with her. And then later on, right before everything's coming together in the third act, she's further distracting him at this party where all the officers are by singing. She's performing a song, like a seductive number, and she says a phrase in Yiddish, and he's like, aha, she should have said that in German, so I know she's a Jew now, which was corny and makes no sense to me. That is the trigger.
I thought that was corny too because of her appearance, the fact that she basically told you that she thinks Hitler's a joke and she's Jewish. She already told you that. She never says she wasn't. Mm-hmm. She just kind of laughs. Because he gets mad at her at first, and then she starts laughing, like, how ridiculous that I would actually be a Jew. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought it all seemed like Heinrich is not very observant or skeptical, it would seem. Like, this stunning woman is here to get me to do business with her.
And for such a secret mission upon which a lot is riding, I just think that, is there a blonde spy we could use? Because she does this number, and I think Ritchie does this really curious thing by cutting away from González while she's performing, like visually and the audio goes away. She's the female lead, and all I could think of was like, someone telling Marlene Dietrich, like, hey, we're going to cut away from you while you're singing Lily Marlene.
Well, Eiza González is no Marlene Dietrich.
No, but know, like...
you were more bothered by that than I was. I was more bothered by the fact that it's like nothing really... There are very few obstacles except that now that Marjorie has found out, Heinrich takes her to like a place to torture her.
Kind of like Karen Allen in Raiders of the Lost Ark.
And right as they're about to do it, the gasoline reserves explode. So, of course, Heinrich's distracted, and then she's able to very easily escape. Again, it's just all very slick, and I always feel the way about film. I felt this way about Django Unchained and Glorious Bastards, like taking these historic moments and making them stylized and fun. It kind of feels awkward to me a little bit, like,
sure,
this is very serious business that we're making cutesy.
The stakes, the tension in this there's some tension in the stake. It's just like the stakes aren't calibrated well enough. I think somebody like Spielberg used to I think better incorporate Nazis as villains and then still retain the seriousness of it in the Indiana Jones films, but this feels more Matthew Vaughn territory, like the Kingsman films, than it does Spielberg.
Yeah, the severity of it all was missing because it was an easy watch. I enjoyed the experience. I found it entertaining in an odd way, and it clicked on by.
It does. It's 2 hours. It goes by very fast.
Yeah.
I liked it, but the tendency for some of these even contemporary films where these declassified documents have been released, and now the secret mission can come to light. I like this better energy-wise than John Madden's Operation Mincemeat with Colin Firth, which I think was released on Netflix 2 or 3 years ago now, where about another secret mission where the Brits are using this corpse to distract the Nazis. I don't know. I think most surprisingly I thought Henry Cavill was entertaining, which I don't know if I ever thought that before.
Well, especially after I just watched him in Argylle, I was pleased to see him in a role where it seemed like he was having fun. He looks great. He's more vibrant. Mm-hmm. So I did enjoy him. His character has a thing about coats. Mm-hmm. So like he takes a couple people's coats after he takes Carrie Elwes's coat as like a bribe. Like, I'll agree to do your little mission and he steals a bunch of like cigars. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was really cute. And then he kills a Nazi commander. But before he does, he goes, "Wow, I'd really like that coat." Mm-hmm. And then the next scene is him walking out after killing him with the coat on. So there are a lot of cute little flourishes, which again seems so odd for the subject matter. Alan Ritchson, who is very appealing on screen, and he uses a bow and arrow, which I'm assuming was a characteristic of the actual person. But the way they make it seem, I don't know, it felt like Robin Hood Men in Tights to
me. Or superhero film almost.
Or,
like, whoa, you're really good at that. He, of course, plays Jack Reacher in the television version of that property, which I have not seen. Freddie Fox, in kind of a throwaway role, is playing Ian Fleming, who, of course, was the author that created James Bond. And we're told at the end of this that Cavill's character, Gus March-Phillipps, was probably the basis for Bond, which I thought was interesting.
What would you give the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare?
Again, I think it's an ensemble piece where only a couple people actually shine. But that said, it's very I thought it was entertaining and energetic, and for the more enterprising viewers, maybe will open a doorway to visit more realistic things. But that being said, I like it a lot better than some Ritchie films, so I'll give it 3 out of 5.
I would give it 3 out of 5. Join us on Patreon and listen to our podcast. Bye.